Today I have a most pleasant task, and that is to introduce my friend, Dr. Jack Lewis. Jack has served as New River's 5th president for 16 years. Some of you here today, particularly the young folks, may see Jack and his many accomplishments that are described in the program and think that Jack's has been an easy road to success. But that hasn't necessarily been the case. Jack grew up not in affluent circumstances, but on a tobacco farm in South Georgia. He earned money by cutting tobacco and picking cotton. I think by anybody's definition, back-breaking work in the hot Georgia sun. Jack first came to New River Community College at the urging of Dr. Ed Barnes, and I'm so sorry that Ed and Shirley couldn't be here today. I spoke with Ed last night and was sorry that they weren't up to traveling up here today. But of course, Ed was a former president at New River. And when I talked to Ed last night, he reminded me of when Jack had first come to New River all those 42 years ago. At the time Jack came, he was himself a student, a graduate student at Virginia Tech. And Ed described Jack as one of the most hardworking individuals you can imagine when he first came. Some things never changed Jack. But Jack worked so much, both at school and here at his job at New River, that he didn't have time to get a haircut. His hair kept getting longer and longer, and finally Dr. Barnes, who had to go to him and say something to him and say, Jack, you're working too hard, you need to get a haircut. And in fact, according to what Ed told me, he called him a hippie. If you can imagine Dr. Lewis as a hippie, it's a little beyond my being able to visualize. But Jack said, well, where do I go get a haircut? And Ed said with a twinkle in his eye, and any of you who know Ed Barnes, there's always a twinkle in his eye. He said, well, why don't you go over to this old guy over in town. He's getting ready to retire. He's got one chair in his barber shop, but he'll do it for you cheap. So Jack went to get his hair cut late one day, and the next morning, Dr. Barnes is looking out his window, and he sees Jack coming up the sidewalk with a hat pulled all the way down to his ears. He didn't tell Jack that the barber had a little vision problem. And about the best he could do was just shave Jack's head, except for those big tufts of hair that were sticking out all over his head. Ed says that Jack wore that hat for weeks, and nobody saw his head for the longest kind of time. Jack and Ed Barnes are tremendous friends, if you can believe such a thing, after the haircut. And they were, of course, colleagues for many, many years here at New River. Ed knows more stories about Jack Lewis than I could possibly share with you today. Fortunate, though, that most of them can't be repeated in a fine group of folks like you all. But Ed told me about a time that he and Jack took a little trip. Most of these stories begin with road trips, I think. And Jack needed to go see his parents down in South Georgia. And for some reason, Mary Ann couldn't go with him, and Ed volunteered to travel with him down there. And as they were traveling down that long road to South Georgia, Jack looked over at Ed and told Ed, well, you know, you can be a little rambunctious sometimes, and, you know, we're going to go to this church supper while we're down there, and everybody I know is going to be there. So if you could just please kind of hold it down and try not to act like a heathen when you're around all these people I grew up with. Well, they went to the church dinner. There were a number of ministers there, the current minister and the former ministers. And they, after dinner, I guess after it got a little cooler down in South Georgia, they decided they'd play horseshoes. And Jack, I don't think anybody's ever accused you of being an athlete, but Jack was playing horseshoes and not very well, and his last throw came, and he threw that horseshoe, and the open end of the horseshoe is going right toward the stake. Ed said he knew absolutely he was going to get a ringer. At the last second, it hit the very top of the stake and flipped off and flew off into the field. And Jack said, "Damn." Angie, can we say something like that at a lunch like this? And Ed came over to Jack and said, "Remember, you're among people you grew up with. Don't act like a heathen." I can assure you that Jack has behaved much better since that particular time. Jack was hired 42 years ago to manage the college's data processing department. And for those of you, particularly young people, who don't know what data processing is, I think that's an early word for computers, if you can call something 42 years ago an actual computer. Jack was a geek before that entered our vernacular. And Jack first came to New River with the idea that he would stay for 1 year. But he found a home at New River, and here, 42 years later, we are celebrating Jack Lewis. He stayed on, and he has kept New River on the cutting edge of innovation and technology since that time. But I don't want you to think that Jack Lewis is just a technocrat. He has a great technical mind, a great computer mind. But he's served at New River during a time of tremendous growth and progress, including the expansion of New River over to the mall site in Montgomery County. He has come to be recognized as one of Virginia's, and indeed one of the nation's, foremost leaders in promoting post-secondary education and student success. He's recognized as a gifted leader and manager at this college, and as I've already told you, he's been a tireless worker during these 42 years. Those qualities of leadership and hard work are wonderful, but they are not the facets of Jack's life that I most admire. Jack's greatest strength is that he has dedicated his heart, his mind, and his very considerable energy to New River Community College. New River Community College is Jack Lewis's passion and has been for 42 years. Jack has brought us where we are today. Jack has built a wonderful team here at New River, but he's part of another team as well, and I'm sure that most of you know what I mean. Jack is married to Dr. Mary Ann Lewis. Mary Ann had a similarly humble background, but has also enjoyed tremendous success, and she's risen to be assistant provost at Virginia Tech. Jack is devoted to his Mary Ann, and personally, Jack, I attribute a great deal of your success to yours and our Mary Ann's. She's been at your side for these 42 years. As part of his leadership here at the college, Jack and his Mary Ann have led by example in so many ways. But we're here today to celebrate giving and scholarships that are the fruit of that giving. Jack and Mary Ann have led in the area of philanthropy as well as in all the other areas that I've talked about. He, as your college president, has done what I've not known any other college president to do. He and Mary Ann have demonstrated through their generosity, first and foremost, they don't just ask you to give to New River Community College. They lead by example. And they have made one of the largest gifts to New River that we have received, a gift of over $500,000. And for that, we are all grateful. Jack, Mary Ann, you have inspired us by your generosity and by your leadership. Today, we as a college foundation celebrate giving by honoring our many donors who are here and some who are not, and also recognizing those who have benefited by your tremendous generosity, our students, because that's why we're all here today, our students. It's so appropriate to have as a speaker today someone who believes in New River Community College and believes in each of you. I've heard many distinguished speakers at these lunches, at these brunches, including New River students who've gone on to enjoy great success, like Mike Watson sitting over there. Last year, one of Virginia's best governors, Jerry Baliles. But no speaker has been more devoted to this college and to public education than our speaker today. And without further ado, it is my pleasure, and I do this with a great deal of admiration and affection, it's my pleasure to introduce to you your president, Dr. Jack Lewis.
He has cold hands.
Warm heart, warm heart.
I don't know how I'm supposed to deliver a speech after that. And in fact, somebody asked me if I was ready, and I said, well, I don't know that I'm ready. I am prepared. I think there's a difference. You know, my friend Ed Barnes, he was going to be here, and I did learn that at the last minute he was took ill and was unable to be here. He's probably those who have read Reader's Digest over the years, there was a section there in there called My Most Unforgettable Characters. I'm sorry Ed's not here, because you would know exactly what I mean when I say that he would be one of my most unforgettable characters. It is a pleasure to welcome all of you here. I love this event. There's two other events that measures up to this one, and that's our graduation, and it's when we give out academic awards for student achievement. I want to say this, that the preparation that goes into this event, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you how much it is. I just sit by and watch, and I can hardly believe that their energy just hangs in there to the very end. But let me just pause and have us all give a big applause to Angie Covey and her team. Well, could we do that? Angie, where are you? Right over here. Angie works me to death as well. She's one of those people who executes and pulls me in every now and then. Gary, I don't know what to say about that introduction. It's just, you were overly generous. I just hope I live up to some measure of all that you've said. I would tell you that I know of no one who personifies the broadest definition of philanthropy than our Gary Hancock. You know, this guy contributes financially, but gosh, he contributes so much in his community and across this state. You know, the venues that I'm aware of are like Rotary Club and his church, the Science Club. I was there with Gary last night. And the Fine Arts Center, and it just goes on and on. And of course, our college. I can't remember when he was not a member of the foundation board. That really is what this is about today. And he chaired that board. But the most notable thing that I appreciate about this man is his service even beyond the Near Valley. He was appointed by Mark Warner in 2004 to be one of the 15 members of the State Board of Community Colleges. You know, there's 8.4 million people in Virginia, and the governor chose him. So I don't know of anybody who has risen to of such excellence in our community as this man. So would you join me in just giving a big applause for this guy's leadership? Thank you, Gary. And of course, he motivates me all the time, trying to live up to all the things he says. There's another person I just have to bring attention to. Folks, we have with us today the only living charter member of our college board. Les, that dates back prior to 1970. Les, you and your lovely wife are here. Les and Joyce Pugh, would y'all please stand up and let us recognize you, the only living member of our chartered college board. Les. Of course, Les points out to me that he was only a teenager when he became a member of that board. But they are also, they give so generously to this college. And so I'm especially grateful for your financial support, Les. I always say that. And you know, he usually comes up with another check after I say that, so I keep doing that, and I keep doing it, you know. Now, there's one more introduction before I say a few things to you. There's only one recipient of an honorary degree from this college, and this man, my friend Paul Duncan, is here, and he's here with his lovely wife. Now, Paul Duncan, on this stage, I was so proud to give that to Paul. One of his sons said to me, you know, my dad doesn't have a PhD, but he could teach it. He's such a knowledgeable man. And he gave to this college, folks, 102 acres of land, which basically doubled the size of this campus. And he's here today because he also contributes money financially. He contributes for scholarships. Now, Paul, like me, grew up poor, which makes for some interesting stories. Paul tells the story about the crooked road to his house. As he tells it, there was one curve so severe that when the mule and wagon went through this curve, the mule could eat corn out of the back of the wagon. Now, Paul, I've been hearing you tell all these stories, but that one story makes all the others suspect. Now, I want to talk to you about philanthropy a little bit. We're here to celebrate philanthropy, and so many wonderful people are happy here because of what we do through our foundation. And I'm mostly going to be talking, I guess, to the donors, but I hope the students will have some interest in what I have to say. I want to begin by just answering the question, what is philanthropy? Frankly, I always thought it was about money. As it turns out, philanthropy is so much more than about money. I see my good friend Nanny Hairston is back there today. We just celebrated her 95th birthday, and I was there. Can we give a big applause to Nanny Hairston? She's waving back there. There's a perfect example of giving so much through service to others. And of course, Gary is my hero. But your being here today is an example of philanthropy because you're giving of your heart today. I also discovered that there's a difference between philanthropy and charity. In all my reading and thinking about what to say today, I uncovered that charity, by some authors, they say, is more about immediate relief to pain, immediate relief to causes. You know, somebody's hungry and you give them a meal, or that somebody's at the emergency room of a hospital. So you kind of get my drift here. But philanthropy is more about treating root causes, like what you have done here today in contributing to this college. Now, I want to take you down a little bit of a road with my own philanthropy. As Gary has already pointed out, I grew up on a farm in southern Georgia. We didn't have any money. Paul, you didn't have any money, did you, growing up? So we talk about that stuff and those stories. We're going to have to correct some of those stories, too. I want you to know that we were so poor that just money just was never, I never saw the stuff. But we had this grocery truck that would come by our house every week. Can you imagine a truck coming by with groceries on it? My father, I can see him right now meeting that truck with chickens and corn to barter for staples like flour and sugar. Anybody in this crowd ever had that experience? It might have been, I see somebody, yes. One of the most wonderful friends I have right here has raised his hand, Tracy. We know about that, don't we? So, I can remember neighbors helping neighbors, farmers helping farmers. Farmers couldn't have made it without each other's help. They didn't have any money to pay for anything. So my point is that there was a lot of philanthropy in my growing up. It just didn't have anything to do with money. So it will not surprise you to learn that in our home, the word college was never mentioned in my growing up. It just wasn't in their sphere of reference. But that all changed when a chemistry teacher by the name of Delano Dean asked me one day if I might get my parents' permission to spend a day with him. So I can very well remember, like it was yesterday, matter of fact, when Delano Dean picked me up at my house early on a Saturday morning in his Beetle. I thought we were going down to Hurricane Creek fishing. We never talked about college. Well, guess where we ended up? It's South Georgia College. We met with this fine gentleman, I can still remember his name, Mr. Cunningham. When we left there that day, not only was I a student, I had a job in the chemistry lab. So from personal experience, I know about the power of education. Who could ever come from being a farm boy, a tobacco farm, and become a president of a college? And I might add, the number one college. There are 1,200 colleges, community colleges in this country, and I happen to be president of the America's number one community college. Thank you. Thank you. So coming back from this background, you can all understand when I say this. Tracy, I bet you could say the same thing I'm going to say. I could never have imagined having wealth. And if I could have imagined having wealth, I couldn't ever have imagined giving it away. Tracy, is that kind of mirror your thinking? I mean, that's because money just wasn't a part of us. In fact, my good friend Ed Barnes, that Gary so eloquently described about the comments and the stories that Ed knows about me. I know many about him, by the way. But Ed Barnes would put it this way. He says, and he did it often, he says, now Jack is not stingy, but he's tight. Now I am still tight. Marion knows that. Tracy is that way. It's in our DNA. But somehow, Angie Covey pulls a little money out of me every year. So look out, Tracy. So back to Delano Dean, my chemistry teacher. I know of no other way to put it but just to say I feel compelled to give back, to pass it on. What better place to give back than here? I want to transition to something maybe I'd be a little less emotional about. I want to talk about college, the journey our college is on in student success. Now, I hope to make the connection with you between student success and philanthropy. For as long as I can remember, we have openly expressed that the number one priority at New River Community Colleges was and is teaching and learning. So teaching and learning is still a high priority at this institution. That's kind of what distinguishes community colleges, by the way, from universities. Our focus is teaching and learning. That being said, far too many of our students are not succeeding. This is true at most colleges and universities. I recently had the good fortune of spending an hour with the new president, Dr. Brian Hemphill. Dr. Hemphill is the new president at Radford University. We talked for an hour in my office about student success. And we talked about his leadership and his work at West Virginia State University, where he was president before coming to RU. And I make this point to tell you that student success has become a movement across all levels of education, especially in community colleges. And I'm so happy to say to you that all faculty and staff at New River Community College are extremely committed to student success, and I'll say more about that in just a minute. When we look at student success, there's one single variable that largely determines who graduates from college. One single variable that determines largely who will graduate from college is family income. Even when controlling for ability, students coming from the top quartile of family income are 4 times more likely to graduate than students coming from the bottom quartile of family income. That's a national statistic, by the way. So colleges and universities are recognizing that for low-income and first-generation students, we must do more than just assist these students with academic and financial needs. So what is it that we need to do? Well, it's kind of simple in a way. Students must feel that they belong on our campuses. Ultimately, students must come to believe that they are smart enough to succeed here. This means that we must get into our students' heads, as one author put it. We must deal with their doubts. We must deal with their fears. We must deal with students' misconceptions. It means that for low-income and first-generation students like I was, colleges and universities must connect first with students emotionally before they connect with them intellectually. Now, at this college, we focus on this emotional connection in our orientation program. We now require students to go through orientation. You see, students don't do options any better than we do. This summer, we had over 30 summer orientation sessions. It's amazing, the participation. And you know, in those orientation sessions, we set high expectations. We provide so much information to make them feel comfortable here. Ultimately, what we're trying to do there is have our students leave the summer orientation with a commitment and with a spirit, or can-do spirit, I should say, that I can succeed, that I belong at New River Community College. This is a new model for student success at our college, and we call it intentional engagement. So we intentionally engage students beginning in the summer orientation and then in the fall for those students that will be new in the spring. So all new students must go through this. And then it continues throughout the rest of that student's journey at our college. Our faculty and staff, all of us, we are all in joint commitment to intervene when a student needs help. When a student needs help, we contact the student. We initiate that contact. We don't wait until that student comes to us. If we waited for them to come to us, for many, it would be too late. This is where the name of our student success model came from. It's about intentional engagement. So our model is named intentional engagement. I don't know of another institution in the country that does it. You can imagine the commitment to do this for the entire student body. Most colleges, when they're into an intensive intentional engagement work, they deal it with a subset of students that have some level of risk. So this model, intentional engagement, it's all about us making the first move, not the student. Oh, we're happy if a student makes that first move. And it's our goal that ultimately that student will become so self-confident, they will make that first move, but not in the beginning. So, what do you think about this number? How successful have we been with this? Last fall, ladies and gentlemen, we reduced the number of student withdrawals from classes by 21%. They didn't just stay in and fail. There were more of them that made A's, B's, and C's. Now, you can give an applause for that. That is an achievement. Thank you. So it's huge what we're doing here, and we believe this semester will end up with those success numbers. Every faculty member I talk to, they're so excited. The students come in their classes more prepared, more committed to learn because we create expectations. Now, I want to make the connection between student success and philanthropy. Think about how profound this is. Students who are successful, they graduate, or they transfer, or they get a job. Then what happens? Think about this. They shape their surroundings. They shape family attitudes about education. They become better employees. They pay taxes. Did this go off? Thank you. They shape their communities as better citizens. Most of all, they shape the course of their own lives. For many of our students in this room, many of you, none of that would happen without philanthropy. So this room is full of generosity. You can feel it in the air. Just look around you. Look inward. And you know exactly what I mean. In closing, let me recap. While students are here at New River Community College, we shape them. Thereafter, they shape us, they shape their families, our institutions, our schools, our communities. This reflects the power of education. But it also reflects the deeper meaning of why we are gathered here in this room today. This is philanthropy at its best. Not all gifts last forever. But when you give to NRCC, you are truly given to an organization that gets to the root of people's problems, to the root of their needs, to the root of their hopes and their dreams for a better life. This reminds me of the old saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. You're given to a cause that lasts for a lifetime. People give because they believe in something. And I'm so glad that you believe in New River Community College, that you believe in these students, and that you are so willing to invest in their future. So, let me just say finally, thank you, friends, for your generosity. Love you all. Thank you. Thank you. You all are so special. So thank you for being here. And who knows, maybe I'll come back next year.
You're not quite finished yet, Dr. Lewis, so don't go too far. Before this event started this evening, and I thought Dr. Lewis may mention this, but I should have known how humble he is and that he would not have, but he and Mary Ann made an additional contribution to the Student Success Initiative. So he handed me a check for $100,000. So I think he and Mary Ann both need another round of applause. And that being said, I think it's a perfect time to share with this audience that our Educational Foundation has requested that we establish a fund for student success, and it will be an endowed fund, and the name of that fund that will live forever at New River will be the Jack and Mary Ann Lewis Legacy Student Success Endowment. So. Thank you, Dr. Lewis, and thank you, Mary Ann. As we come to a close, I'd like to extend a special thank you to the many people behind the scenes, my two partners in crime for this whole event. Of course, Erica Talbert and Fran Streff, who are in the back. If you would stand, please. And of course, our facility services and IT. I mean, there are just so many people that I would like to thank. Of course, Professional Catering of Blacksburg for another delicious meal. National Bank, our sponsor again this year, thank you. And of course, Dr. Lewis, for your leadership and your passion and all that you believe in to support New River Community College, so thank you. So all of you, it's your generosity and your belief in the power of education is what makes this program a success. So thank you, and that concludes our event. So we're the only thing standing between our students and fall break. So students enjoy, and you all have a lovely day. Thank you.